Hello, all my friends, and thank you for joining Internet Stories today. Today we have three great stories from the Reddit subreddit I Don't Work Here Lady. Our first story is about a lady who thought she was dropping her dog off at a doggy daycare, but it was really the dog friendly office next door. Our second story is about shopping at Walmart late at night when the angry stocking manager starts yelling at the shopper for not working harder. The third story today is about a customer who was overly aggressive and rude to a person who happens to be wearing a shirt with some red in it, and they're not an employee. But still, this story would have been incredibly rude to someone, even if they were an actual employee. And then our fourth and last story is your definition of a toxic work environment, where a startup has two people who are pretty viciously fight like the definition of an married old couple. A startup which is burning cash and sinking like a ship. This story is called This Isn't a Dog Daycare at All. A while back, I was working in an office that allowed dogs. It was an open office floor plan, and since customers never came into the office, we kept the dogs' food in water bowls right by the front door, just because it was the most convenient space. And no one ever would see them but us who worked there. Of the six of us who worked in the main office area, I was the only one who didn't have a dog. No pet policy at the apartment I lived, and always felt horribly left out. To make matters worse, across the way was a doggy daycare. One day, a very frantic woman came in, and she had an absolutely massive basset hound with her. Usually, the only people who came into the office were associates who had appointments with someone working there, but it was rare they brought their dogs. She ran up to me. "Do you work here?" And I said, "Yes, how can I help you?" And I said, "I wasn't sure if you took walk ins, but I read online I could just drop him off." I tried to call, but no answer. I didn't know what she was talking about at that point, and I said, "Come in. Who did you call exactly?" Thinking if I could just saddle her off to whoever she came to see, I wouldn't have to decipher her problem. She said, "Well, it doesn't matter now. Look, something's urgent come up, and I really need to leave him here. Here's his food he likes, and I'll be back in a few hours." And at this point, I wasn't thinking of the doggy daycare. I thought maybe she was a friend of someone here. I said, "Well, all right. Can I get your name, please?" And she said her name, and then asked if I needed to sign anything. And I was so confused at this point, I just said, "Why would I need you to sign something?" And she left almost immediately. So I took Otis, the dog, to the back and showed him to my coworkers, and no one knew the woman or the dog. I was so worried she wouldn't come back, but at the same time, my wish of an office dog had been granted, and Otis was supremely chill. All he did all day was lie around and drool onto his own ears. I just freshened him up every now and then, took him out every couple of hours, and he was happy as a clam on a big cushy dog bed we thankfully had an extra of. He just loved attention from anywhere he could get it. At the end of the day, the woman, thank God, came back. She said, "Thanks, you're a lifesaver. How was he?" And I said, "He was a champ." And was about to say, "But why is he here?" when she said, "That's a relief. Most kennels say he gets anxious around other dogs." I heard you operated at a much higher capacity. I was thrilled to see you had so few clients in the room at the time. So how much do I owe? And that's when I realized she thought we were the dog daycare. Now I probably should have corrected her, but I love my day with the office dog, and I didn't want to get paid for supervising this strange dog all day. I just threw out a number that sounded fair and appropriate. "That'll be 20, I said. She replied, "Really?" in this very high tone I couldn't tell if I overshot or undershot, but she paid me and left. My coworkers were laughing hysterically when they realized what had happened, and we thought it must be a good story for the future. But next week, she came back. She said we are so much more affordable and less crowded than her other place, that she was happy to use us. I was glad for the company, so I just took him. I didn't think there was any way she couldn't have at least some idea we weren't a dog daycare. The whole ordeal was so strange, I just figured, don't question a good thing. I was much younger and dumber then. Not long after, Otis started getting dropped off 2, sometimes even 3 or 4 days a week. I was in heaven. He was such a love, and he made fast friends with the delivery guys and visitors. One day we took our office Christmas card photo, and Otis was over that day, so we included him in a Santa hat. It was pretty great. But it turns out Otis's owner was friends with one of our clients, who I guess happened to have the card out on her table, or was kind enough to display it alongside her other holiday cards. Because one day, Otis's owner came in holding the card and walked up to me and said, I can't even believe I'm asking you this. Is that my dog in this photo? This isn't a dog daycare at all. This is just an office, isn't it? She said it with a note of surprise, as though she was looking around and putting it all together for the first time. No coincidence that this was the first time she wasn't in some crazy rush either. She was like, then who are all these other dogs? And I explained. I was terrified she was going to demand her money back, or worse, take some sort of legal action against us for misrepresenting ourselves as a dog care business or complaining to corporate. Instead, she basically said, why didn't you ever say anything? And I explained, we just really liked having Otis around. She stopped for a minute and seemed to be thinking and said, is that right? And I said, yes. And told the story of how I was the only one in the office without a dog. So I love the company. She seemed a little flummoxed or hesitant. Understandably, because the whole thing was so weird. She turned to my coworker and asked if I was telling the whole truth. I don't know why she thought my coworker, also a stranger to her, was any more trustworthy than me, but hey, strange times. Coworker backed me up. So she said, well, I wish you'd said something sooner. Could have saved me a lot of embarrassment with my friend back there. All right, I have to get going. See you at 4. And she left Otis. I couldn't believe it. I said, so he can stay? And she replied, where else can I find someone to watch him one-on-one all day for $20? And she went. Otis stayed my office dog until his family moved away. Luckily, right around the same time, I took a new job. With all this time sitting around doing nothing, though, it was a good time as any to tell this story. Wow. That's a great story. I love it. You know, the lady that had Otis, you know, needed to find a loving person to take care of him during the day, and the lady was so happy to, because he was such a nice basset. I mean, I love the story. It makes me so happy to read it. I hope everyone else enjoyed it too. Thanks. This story is called I Just Got Fired. I never thought I would experience this in my lifetime. I'm a hard worker, extremely dependable and respectful. Not sure how I could lose a job like this, especially when I only just got it. So I work late, and just about every night for the last few weeks at least, I stop by Walmart to get something for dinner. I usually get off around midnight and stop by on my way home. Every time I'm at Walmart, barely anyone is there except for the night crew, stocking up the store and doing their own thing. Now, from what I've noticed, they don't have much of a uniform. Many of them are in hoodies or jackets or different colors. Just to add some context, I showed up last night and I'm wearing a hoodie. I begin to walk up and down the aisles trying to figure out what I want for dinner. I'm thinking pasta and walk past a few guys who are loading the shelves. All of a sudden, I start hearing a guy yelling. This voice gets louder. Hey! Hey! Are you listening? I look to turn and see what is going on, and this guy approaches me. You're late again! Don't think I haven't noticed you walking in the door after 12. I begin to laugh, thinking this guy is joking around. Before I can even say anything, he jumps on me. You think this is funny? Your job must not be that important to you. I want you to follow me to the office. Now I'm completely confused and start looking around like I'm on some hidden camera show. He starts to walk off, and I turn around and go back to shopping. He comes back a minute later and starts to yell, You want to be fired? Because if you don't come with me now, I will fire you. I start to laugh even harder. Then I ask him, What's my name? He gives me a puzzled look. So I ask him again, What's my name? Do you even know who I am? He looks at the other guys in the aisle who have stopped stocking the shelves at this point to watch this event unfold. He then looks back at me, trying to figure out what exactly to say back to me before his head explodes. Good luck filling out the paperwork to fire me when you don't even know my name. I continue to laugh at this whole stupid charade. I pick up some ingredients for spaghetti, trying to give this guy a clue. He storms off, and I look at the other guys in the aisle. I'm sure he will figure out eventually. I don't work here. They start laughing, and I go on. Can't believe I lost the job I just found out I had in the same night. Yeah, that's hilarious. I mean, you got a guy that's so angry, doesn't even want to listen. I just have to listen to what they're trying to tell you. They don't work there. Try to find the other new guy that just doesn't want to show up either. Yeah. This story is called First Mistake, Red Shirt and Target. Note, this happened when I was 18. I'm a girl, 5 feet tall, and since age 16, I have always carried a pocket knife with a short sort of trigger, just for my peace of mind. Also, I've got a huge thing about physical contact, and do not like even when family and friends initiating any sort of hug, pat on the back, etc. without asking. I was in Target for the first time, and I was by myself, sort of checking it out, because we'd always been too thrifty to go to Target growing up. I was minding my own business, strolling the aisles with my basket of slightly overpriced herbal tea. I end up in this cool snack section where they had seaweed packets and tossed 2 into my basket when I realized there was a man, mid-30s, early 40s, that I've seen in the same aisles as me quite a few times. No big deal. It's just a coincidence, right? I peruse a couple more sections in the store and eventually end up past the baby kid section and see the same middle-aged sort of guy hanging back from me, but he's following me with more intent at this point. Getting a little nervous, but it's not like anything is going to happen to me in the middle of Target. What's he going to do? Kidnap me in the middle of a Target with hundreds of people in? I keep going, and eventually I see the kitchenware section. I stop and look up at the signs to see where exactly I want to look around. Ah, there. I take a step forward, and just as I do, the same man from earlier grabs me by my shirt collar and says, "Excuse me." And without hesitation, I grab my side, deploy my knife, point it at him, and yell back, "What the F do you think you're doing?" We're right outside an aisle, and there are people around who saw him grab me. He looks shocked, just locked and everything. I repeat to him again, just as loud and just as expletive filled. Who the F do you think you are? Why are you following me? Why did you grab me? He snaps out of it a bit and says, Are employees even allowed to carry knives? What the hell are you doing? Where's your supervisor? Now, it's my turn to look dumbfounded. I said, I'm not an employee. And even if I was, do you really just grab people whenever you go, especially younger women? At this point, we've got a small crowd, and I feel safe enough to put my knife back in my pocket. He spits back. Well, if you had been paying any attention, you'd know that I'd been around you this whole time trying to get your attention, but you just kept walking off from me. Aren't you supposed to help people in the store? Did you hear what I said? I don't work here. He took a step forward to look down at me and started on about, all you had to do was say so then. Instead, you pull a knife on me like some psycho bitch. He then points out that I'm wearing a red shirt. I'm floored at this. I'm wearing a dark red and plaid long sleeve harness crop top and black high-waisted jeans. What Target employee do you see wearing a plaid crop top? Finally, someone steps in to help. A tall guy, burly guy, who looked like Duck Dynasty met Sons of Anarchy, gets in between us and pushes the guy back and tells him that's no way to speak to anyone, and says, I saw the whole thing. You grabbed her by her collar. She has every right to be offensive. At this, Creep backed off, and Ducks of Anarchy, my hero, tells him to F off. He fires off one last crazy pee, but walks off toward the back of the store. I sincerely thanked Mr. Hero. I was truly grateful. Being a smaller person, even with a knife, you don't feel all that threatening. I took my SH straight to the checkout and left. Never in my life have I thought about grabbing a stranger, employee of a store or otherwise, to get their attention. I wouldn't even tap on their shoulder. If you just say, excuse me, or hey, you're likely to get the attention of anyone in the immediate area. Maybe I was raised differently, but I feel like not grabbing strangers is a pretty obvious social no-no. Another note, yes, I know it's a bit paranoid to carry a knife everywhere, especially into a Target of all places. I also know I could have handled this very public situation without taking my knife out, but when fear kicks in, instinct takes over. I wouldn't say I regret how I handled myself, but it's just evidently psycho crazy me. Yeah, the thing is, people wear red shirts aside just Target employees. I mean, Target does not have a monopoly on red shirts. And if someone's trying to walk away from you, it doesn't matter if they're an employee. Find someone else that hopefully at that point is actually an employee. Don't just like creep them down where you're gonna follow them around the whole store, that one employee that I think should be helping you. Try harder. Talk to someone else. This story is called Former Boss Seems to Have Forgotten She Fired Me. So some backstory here because it's important. I used to work for a tech company based in the US, a small startup with a small team. From the interview pitch, it seemed perfect. I get to walk to work. It's an industry I really like, music, and while the pay is way under my value, I get stock options and good benefits. Within the first month, things are okay. Not amazing, but I'm doing my best to make the most of it. My tech guy is nice, and our HR finance guy is chill. The other two, well, the first warning sign is that they fight, childishly, I might add. If the guy, we'll call him Tim, doesn't know how to do something, he gets flustered and asks for help. First few times I didn't mind it, then realized he was asking me to do all his work for him. That's not a great sign. Second warning sign, the chick, we'll call her Karen, because she is one, blows up constantly. She also asked me to do her work for her. Did I mention she's the head of the company? I had to help her fill out her own W-2. That should have set up alarm bells. But whatever, she's young. Maybe she's only ever worked on 1099 jobs. I don't know. Then the real issue starts to rear their ugly heads. Anytime Tim and Karen disagree, it's a full-scale fight. Neither of them are actually any good at doing their own work. So it's usually down to, well, why isn't this perfect? And whoever is being accused just looks at me while the other goes, I'll do it myself, then gives it back to me with a little to no direction. This goes on for months. The fights only get worse and worse. It's bizarre because it's no dissimilar from a lover's quarrel. That's when I realized that's what it is. These two are dating. They didn't disclose this to anyone, not to me, not to our staff, who was exhausted from listening to them fight, and most shockingly, not to our investors, which is a huge no. Eventually, after months, I request to only work with HR guy and tech guy. To their protests, HR guy allows it, seeing that I'm pretty much going to quit otherwise. It starts out okay, but Karen keeps trying to overload our process with more of work she's supposed to be doing, still trying to get me to do it. Eventually, they hire he's treated like a glorified intern to do their shit for them. I hand over our master list of logins to him, delete all the logins off my devices since I'm not responsible for the channels associated anymore. Get on with my work. Keep this in mind for later. For a brief stint of things are okay, or at least I think they are, because I don't have to deal with Karen and Tim anymore. But oh man, was I wrong. Out of nowhere, Karen and Tim leave town, inform all of us that we need to move to this new city and that I'll have to ship their shit to the new place since I'm the only one still in my city. HR guy was on vacation and tech guy is remote. I'm furious. I less than politely say, hell no. Sure enough, I don't have to convince them. COVID hits. Everyone had to work remote whether they are now or not, because flights aren't an option. Also, I refuse to move their shit. I finally had it and started looking for a new position, but with COVID well underway, I was screwed. It was this or unemployment. Sure enough, Karen starts ignoring process and begins setting up calls, all hours that aren't productive and just wasting time. For me, these calls are sometimes as late as 10 p.m. It's a mess. The final straw was when Karen and Tim eagerly called me to request I do something. Start fighting, forget I'm still on the phone, start cursing each other out. I was just there, incredibly uncomfortably, while they yell at each other. And out of nowhere, Tim calls her his future wife. Like, WTF, guys, hang up. Now I could have hung up, but since I was friends with other staff, I relayed what I overheard, and they informed me that they had no idea, and that's a big yikes. This eventually gets back to one of the investors who freaks. The big checks stop coming in. I wonder why. As COVID rages on, the company just burns through money. All I can tell is that things are going downhill and brace for impact. Sure enough, I get terminated. Everyone does. Now, day forward to today. Out of nowhere, I get a call from Tim. They've misplaced several logins for their accounts. I direct them to the intern, and apparently he doesn't have them. I help them recover the logins because I'm not an ass. And Karen, learning nothing, asks if I can help with a project for free. I don't think I've ever been more happy to say, I don't work here, lady, in my life, just to add some revenge salt. I give them a contractor rate, $50 an hour. I haven't heard back, but if I do, I'll update in the comments. I may not work anywhere right now, but God, am I glad I don't work in that hellhole anymore. I mean, that's just that just sounds like a disaster. Those two fighting all day long. I mean, it's bad enough when I got coworkers yelling at each other like a normal coworker fight, but practically married couple just going on it all day long. It's like no one cares about your shit. Just go somewhere else and deal with it. Thank you all of my friends for joining Internet Stories today and listening to some crazy stories with me. I hope you like all of them. Please like and subscribe for more future stories. Please let me know in the comments below if any of these stories sound familiar.